All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video, a reaction to what Peter King told me and Mark Willard on 95.7 The Game yesterday. All right. Of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And this video is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. That's right. The Krug Show's partner with Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going for five for five. It's a fantasy game, but you can win in real money. This week, I'm going with Brock Purdy, lower than 245.5 passing yards. Joe Burrow, higher than 276.5 passing yards. Jamar Chase, higher than 86.5 receiving yards. Geno Smith of the Seahawks, lower than 244.5 passing yards. And Travis Etienne, higher than 64.5 rushing yards. All right, let's talk a little bit about Peter King, who stopped by on 95.7 The Game with Mark Willard and I. The Odyssey NFL Insider had a lot to say, and let's just go right through it. It was a good, really good interview, one that I enjoyed immensely. You can check it out on 95.7 The Game's website. The first question was, is Sunday against Jacksonville crucial for the 49ers? And, Peter would not go as far as to say it's crucial. He doesn't think it's crucial. I do. He says it's an important game, but not crucial. And really what he's looking at is the NFC West and saying, well, the 49ers aren't going to be challenged that much by Seattle or the Rams or the Cardinals. So he's not looking at it as a crucial game. I'm still thinking of it as the 49ers may catch Philly for the number one seed and host the NFC Championship game. For me, that dream is still very much alive. So I think it is crucial. Deebo Samuel is set to return. Chase Young will be added to the mix coming on to that D-line with Nick Bosa. They should be able to, give the 49ers some real outside pass rush. And basically what I look at it as, the Niners need to start feeling good about themselves. And if they lose 4 in a row, Peter mentioned how there's some self-doubt that could creep in. But Peter believes the NFC West is the Niners to lose, and thus he doesn't think it's crucial. Now, I asked Peter, how close is Chase Young to the player he was as a rookie when he won the Defensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL? And, he thinks that Chase Young in the Niners environment will really raise his level of play, and he'll start playing at even a higher level than he played with the Commanders, just because with the 49ers, there's expectations. And also on this defense, he's not going to be the sole guy asked to do the job. He'll be on a defense with a bunch of other really good players, and he thinks that Chase Young will rise to the 49ers standard and play even better than he played for the Commanders, which would be great to see. Peter, the Niners have to get home. They've gotten a lot of pressure, but they got to get home on the quarterback, and it's difficult against these quarterbacks to get it out so fast. You've probably watched more of Chase than we have this year. How close is he to the player that won Defensive Rookie of the Year coming out of Ohio State? And what kind of impact do you think he ultimately is going to make here?
The best thing that he said in his first news conference was when he talked about all the good players that the 49ers have and just sort of expecting to win. And I think if you come from a place that doesn't win and you go to a place that does, and you have great respect for the players in that place, for Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, and Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave, I'm sure that it's different than he experienced in Washington. And, the one thing I would say about Chase Young as a player is that, look, he got into a situation, in the last couple of years where I think it's fairly safe to say he was never as healthy as he would want to be. And I think the big question you have to ask yourself is when you are in a place that is losing and is not going to make the playoffs, I think it's a little bit different than if you're in a place that's like the 49ers and you look around and you see that not necessarily guys are playing mortally wounded, but guys are playing when maybe they're certainly not 100%. And, the expectation is the expectation. And I also think that it's really important for Chase Young to be going to a place where he has people above him, where you don't go into every game and you say, well, if we control Chase Young today, we're not going to have anything to worry about with that defense. Now, they had Young and they had Sweat. But in this particular case, I believe that he's really going to benefit from a guy like Fred Warner, from a guy like Eric Armstead, from an old friend, like Nick Bosa, because he's going to see, in the immortal words of Mike Tomlin, that the standard is the standard.
Mark asked him about Steve Wilks, and does it matter, this debate? Is Steve Wilks going to be on the sideline? Is he going to be up in the booth? And it's funny, Peter laughed at the entire question. He said it's not very important. He thinks it's more important for the offensive coordinator to be on the field so we can have that one-on-one dialogue with the quarterback. But, he said, hey, if the 49ers want to change that up, if they feel like that's a good move for them, so be it. But then he kind of emphasized my point, which is the coordinator himself has to be comfortable. You're going to hold his feet to the fire if it doesn't work. So you might as well let him have the best vantage point he wants. So if he wants to be in an airplane, let him be in an airplane. If he wants to be on the sideline, let him be in the sideline. If he wants to be up in the booth, let him be in the booth. And that's what Peter said. He said, I want to be where I'm most comfortable if I'm the coordinator. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I asked him a little bit about Brock Purdy and his struggles with turnovers the last couple of weeks, and if he thinks Shanahan's going to tinker with the offense. And Peter went on to say, he really likes Purdy, and that he doesn't want to overuse any of their weapons. So he wants to make sure that CMC and Debo and all their top tier weapons are peaking in January. So that's why Peter's like, hey, spread the ball around to some of the backups. And then I thought it was really interesting as well, without even being prompted, Peter said, Purdy does have enough arm. And then he said people who say otherwise are crazy, that he's demonstrated that he's got enough arm to make all the throws.
The one thing that we've seen over and over again, we saw it throughout the game against San Francisco, is that for those who say Brock Purdy has a noodle arm or he doesn't have a strong enough arm, to be a really good quarterback in the NFL or to run Kyle Shanahan's offense, they're crazy, because we've seen it over and over again. He does have a good enough arm. And that's why, to me, when I look at this team, obviously Debo Samuel and his presence is really, really important. I think the bye week came at a very good time for this team. But the thing I would do is I would not be altogether concerned about the number of snaps you see from Debo Samuel.
And then, Peter kind of revealed that he kind of views the 49ers more highly than even some of us do. He said if the 49ers are healthy in the playoffs, that he'll take his chances with them against any team in the NFC. And when he was pushed on it, you trying to say, Peter, that they're the best team, he said, I don't know if San Francisco is the best team in the NFL, and he cited Philadelphia. But he obviously feels like if the 49ers are at full strength come playoff time, that they can beat anybody in this playoff picture. Mark asked him about, NFL draftism. If there's, people don't question CJ Stroud because he was the second pick and don't say, hey, it's a small sample size, when all they could say when Purdy was having success is, hey, small sample size. And Peter doubled down on his love for Brock Purdy. He said, if Purdy plays the way he did against Dallas, he's plenty good enough. And when he said good enough, he actually expanded on that and said he's good enough to win a Super Bowl with.
All of this other stuff just doesn't matter. Maybe in an ideal world, somebody would rather have C.J. Stroud than Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy is good enough to win with, and I mean to win a championship with. So, he is what you have. He's got a great coach. He's got excellent people around him. I don't know anything else really that you would want, because look, obviously if you had a chance in an ideal world, to get a quarterback who is going to be picked at the top of the draft, you do that. But the 49ers had one of those opportunities, and they picked one of those guys at the top of the draft. And then, as almost just an insurance policy / throwaway, for the last pick of the draft, they picked somebody else. The somebody else was a lot better than the third pick in the draft.
So we know where Peter King stands on Brock Purdy. He thinks he's got enough arm. He thinks that he's already demonstrated that he's good enough to win a Super Bowl with. So everybody out there doubting Brock Purdy, just know that probably the number one reporter in the NFL when it comes to covering football, Peter King, believes that the Niners can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. So just factor that in next time you go to rip up Brock Purdy in some live stream. Also, Peter doubled down on the whole Purdy was a lot better than Trey Lance, and basically said, hey, look, C.J. Stroud, when he was pushed on C.J. Stroud, how good C.J. Stroud, he's like, he's won 4 games. I can't really evaluate. I need more time. And then he just went on to say, sometimes the guy you draft high is not necessarily as good as the guy you draft late, and used Purdy and Trey Lance as an example. He said Purdy was a lot better than Trey Lance. Then I asked him my number one concern with the 49ers, the run D. I said, Peter, the run D, they got gashed in the preseason. I think they, had kind of a questionable run D at the beginning of the year, but it didn't show itself because they were in so many one-sided games. Teams weren't running on them. But in the last month or so, when teams committing to the run, the Niners are getting gashed. Jerome Ford, 4.9 a carry. Alexander Madison, 4.9 a carry. 2 weeks ago, Joe Mixon, 5.4 a carry. And this is where I thought Peter was really interesting. He said, I'd be very concerned by the 49ers run defense. He said Travis Etienne is one of the hottest running backs in football. Stopping Travis Etienne is vitally important. He said that Doug Peterson is absolutely going to try to establish Travis Etienne Sunday against the 49ers. And if the Niners can't stop him, it's going to be a long day. And then he went on and paid Peterson a compliment. He said he can win in many ways. They can run or pass to win, depending on the game. He wants to eat clock. He said Jacksonville early on Sunday is going to try to impose their will in the run game. And he said that the Niners are kind of known around the league as a team that, despite their struggles of sacking the quarterback, they're known as a team that can rush the passer better than stop the run. And, then he made the strongest statement that he made in the entire interview to finish up. He said, the 49ers have to avoid 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. If it's 2nd and short all day, the 49ers will lose this game to the Jaguars. So great stuff from Peter King. I would definitely go to the Odyssey app and check it out. Go to 95.7 The Game's website and check it out. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.